The winner of the Scammer of the Decade goes to Wirecard, the most significant success and failure story in fintech of all time. It is the biggest scandal in the German capital market history. The entire valuation of the ticker symbol WDI worth 24 billion got wiped out in the span of just 9 days. But the scam was dead simple. Basically, Wirecard falsely reported the revenue in excess of 1.9 billion with businesses they acquired in Singapore, Philippines, and India. But why such common scams are able to get so big? At what point did Wirecard started to run dodgy dealings like this? How did Wirecard executives manage to get so many players to cover its tracks? We have spent hours combining through German news and official sources to bring you the full picture. Let's rewind to 1998, when Wirecard was founded by two 20-year-olds, Detlef Hoppenrath and Peter Harrow. This was the time when the world was just starting to conduct businesses online. Companies such as Amazon that survived from the dot-com bubble began to expand its offering beyond books, such as electronic gadgets, toys, and clothing. It was also around the same time frame as Elon Musk started X.com, which would eventually turn into PayPal, one of the global giants in online retail banking today. The two of them secured 4 million euros investment from angel investor Technology Holdings, set up Wirecard as a company, and began developing a banking platform that would later serve giants like SAP and Lufthansa. However, by the year 2000, Harrow abruptly left the company. This leads to Hoppenrath to seek out for candidates to fill the position. He met Jan Marsalek and had good impressions on his charisma. He has no formal education background but seems to be well versed on wireless application protocol and had developed online shops and applications for mobile payment with his previous employer. Hoppenrath was convinced that he would fit the role and decided to hire the then 20-something-year-old for the COO position. Things were going well for Marsalek until he took on a new project, Click to Pay, that turns out to be a disastrous failure. He attempted to keep it under the carpet, initially from Hoppenrath, until it burned through 2 million euros, half of their initial investments, pushing Wirecard to the brink of bankruptcy. Hoppenrath was again pressed for a solution to fix the issue. Enter Marcus Braun, another future architect of the scam. He was brought in as a crisis manager by KPMG, which would later get hunted by Hoppenrath to fill the CTO position. In Germany, companies operate under a two-tier board system. The first is the executive board that manages the day-to-day operations, while the supervisory board oversees the decision made by the executive board. Hoppenrath moved himself to the supervisory board, promoting Marcus Braun to CEO, effectively removing himself from directly managing the financial crisis, but also lose sight in the actual operations of Wirecard. In October 2001, a company named EVS has reached out with an interest to buy over Wirecard. This is seen as a good opportunity for Wirecard because they needed the capital to cover the 2 million losses made by Marsalek. EVS core business is focused on electronic payments, primarily serving adult websites. They have a large group of customer base in these markets but struggle with technology. And naturally, Wirecard would be a good fit. After a series of negotiations, EVS had acquired majority shares of Wirecard and became its holding company. But Hoppenrath was against the acquisition, but he knew that Wirecard needs EVS to survive, so he left the board, effectively removing himself entirely from Wirecard. In the beginning, everything is going well in a new company and the profits are in the millions. In 2003, however, the law was tightened and Wirecard had to let go the erotic industry. And so Wirecard turned their focus on the next best option, the gambling industry, which is typically a high-risk industry for Wirecard, but high profit margins make up for the risk. Through reverse acquisition with a company named Infogenie, a listed but dying business, Wirecard managed to go public in 2005. At this point, they're getting more serious customers, however, a large part of the income still depends on the gambling industry. In 2006, a law came into play that prohibits the processing of payment orders from online gambling. Many of Wirecard's competitors are strongly affected by this, but for Wirecard, they have a plan. The solution is to use third-party providers. They legally uses middleman companies so that the money could not be directly assigned to gambling and that Wirecard can take responsibility. Things continue to go well for Wirecard over the next few years. At this point, Yen Marsalek is leading the overseas expansion across the globe, such as China, Singapore, and the Philippines. New subsidiaries were created one after another with exploding profits. But hardly anyone knows what they are responsible for, and it became very hard to track where the money flows. And of course, this also alerted the auditors. Especially Wirecard has been boasting an absurd growth of 30% year-over-year growth for 5 straight years. But where did this growth come from? To understand this, we first need to take apart of how Wirecard works. Wirecard basically has 2 services. The first, Wirecard as a payment service provider. Only the data is being recorded. When a transaction occurs, the bank is informed that the money should be transferred out. Secondly, Wirecard as a bank. Wirecard is in charge of transporting the money from the buyer to the seller. In this scenario, when a transaction occurs, Wirecard will pay the seller on behalf of the buyer. And now the buyer owes the money to Wirecard. To make it simply, Wirecard pays the seller first, then collects the money from the buyer later. In normal scenario, this means all money buyers owe Wirecard will be the same as the amount of money Wirecard is owing to the sellers. However, for Wirecard, the amount of money collectible from buyers is way higher than the money it owes. Account receivables in 2015 was 250 million euros too high. This is equivalent to the company's profit of 2014 and 15 combined. The trick behind this is that Wirecard cheated with third-party partners. These partners would create fake transactions so Wirecard may record it as receivables. But since they don't actually owe them any money, there is no record of payables. On paper, everything is fine and looks as if Wirecard is sitting on a ton of cash. The auditors of EY confirmed that there was 1 billion euros in their business accounts. But the problem is they never checked to confirm its existence. What making this even more suspicious is that erotic content is essentially free online, and the gambling industry is very difficult because of the competitions and strict legal laws. But the company just keep publishing record profit one after another. This prompts more people to investigate this more closely and suspect that Wirecard is either falsifying the accounts or engaging in money laundering. However, Wirecard has always used its tried and tested 3-step process to deal with this. Step 1. Deny the claims and accuse the skeptics for intentionally manipulating Wirecard's share price.
Wirecard always had the same playbook. Each time it was criticized, it would say that the critics were in league with short sellers seeking to manipulate the share price.
Step 2. With the support of BaFin, the stock regulator of Germany, issued arrest warrant for those actively investigating the case, including the famous whistleblower Dan McCrum, which has been investigating Wirecard since 2007. Step 3. Hunt down the investigators and attempt to pay them to stop reporting negative news about Wirecard. This strategy continued to work every time a high-profile bad news was reported. And the reason why it works so well is BaFin continual support to Wirecard represents the Germany's answer amidst the rise of American big tech companies like Amazon and Google. But even though these strategies work to save the stock prices, every time a bad news broke out, the share price of Wirecard would fall in the double digits, which would give a handsome profit to short sellers. This led to BaFin to issue an investigation not on Wirecard, but against the journalists and reporters. They would go as far as completely banning the short sellers from betting against Wirecard stock. In October 2019, a new report was published, and this time, Wirecard can't get away so easily, as this time, the Singapore police is in the game. The police were investigating the issue with Wirecard business in Singapore as many documents turned out doesn't exist. It was reported that the Singapore arms that manages 1.9 billion euros for Wirecard was forced to transfer the money to Philippines headquarters. However, as reported by the Financial Times longtime investigator Dan McCrum, they visited the business address of Wirecard personally in Philippines, and it turns out it was an empty building with hardly anyone in the office heard of the name Wirecard. The KPMG auditors were appointed to check its 2018 account, and it turns out that they couldn't find proof that the 1.9 billion euros actually exists. The cover is finally broken, and the arrest warrant is officially issued to Marcus Braun and Jan Marsalek. Braun was surprised and turned himself in, while Jan was nowhere to be found. Marsalek knew this would happen one day and had been visiting Russia very frequently since 2017 to set up his backup plan. On the day the news broke out, he told his colleague that he is heading to Singapore to look for the money. But of course, he would never come back again.